Okay, hi, welcome back to Composing Corner podcast. And yeah, this is the second episode, I think. And thank God I got another guest because previously I'm not really sure I'm not gonna get another guest and another episode. But luckily, yeah, here with me is Mbak Asri.
Hello, I'm Asri. You can call me Achi.
Okay, Mbak Aci, how's it going? How's life?
Pretty good. Yeah, enjoying summer. Very relaxing. Mostly.
Okay. Also, last time I already told you guys that there are like only two Indonesian teaching first year composition courses in ASU at ASU. So like one of them is Mas Irfan that I already have a conversation with on the first episode, and now on the second episode I got Mbak Aci. So it's complete two Indonesian teaching FYC, teaching 101, 102 classes at ASU. And yeah, so today we're gonna have another conversation, chit chat about writing, about anything writing related stuff. But first off, I would like to ask Mbak Aci about your academic journey because congratulations, because Mbak Aci just recently graduated from PhD in linguistic and applied linguistic from ASU with full ride scholarship. So like can you like spill the tea a little bit about that? How do you feel? How did you actually ended up becoming a PhD here and got like full ride scholarship, something like that?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So I was an English teacher in Indonesia for a long time, and then I moved to Ukraine to teach English. And I applied to Ohio University for a master's degree, and I got a teaching assistantship as well there. So I moved to Ohio, taught there for 2 years, and I applied to ASU on a similar teaching assistantship, and I got that as well. So I moved from Ohio to Arizona State University. Yeah, that was the nutshell.
Okay, so from Ohio to ASU.
Yes, from
Okay.
Ohio to Arizona.
What about your undergrad? Where did you get your undergrad?
So I did my undergrad at Universitas Pajajaran in Bandung, Unpad, and I did Sastra Arab, which is not really Arabic literature. Well, kind of, but they allowed me to do Arabic linguistics. Actually, so my undergrad thesis was in Arabic linguistics. So that was like a long time ago. I graduated in 2005. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So it got me like wondering like if you can actually compare your teaching experiences, like which one is more? Like you taught English more in Indonesia or you taught English more in the US?
I taught English more in Indonesia for sure. I worked for 10 years at a language school. But it's a different type of teaching. It's a different type of English as well because I was teaching English as a language, either as a foreign language or a second language, both in Indonesia and Ukraine, and in Ohio as well. But here at Arizona State, I didn't teach English as a language. I teach composition, because all the students are all Native American. American students, American students. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Just like Mas Irfan on the first episode, so Mbak Asri have experiences teaching domestic students, right? Because for
Yes.
101, 102, even though like actually as I already also mentioned that there are something called 107 and 108, which is for international students, multilingual writers,
Yes.
but it happened to be for both Mbak Aci and Mas Irfan only teaching domestic students.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, like we already talked about that with Mas Irfan, but I want to know from your perspective because everyone is unique with having different experiences. So
Yes.
like it might be differ.
Yeah.
So like what is really 101, 102 in a nutshell?
Okay. So 101 and 102 are compulsory courses that freshmen have to take here at ASU. So 101 is the first composition class that they have to take. If they pass 101, then they have to take 102. So they have to take both classes. But should I talk about 105 now as well?
Maybe we will, but later.
Okay. So they have continuity from 101 and 102, and the writing programs gave us certain outcomes for each course. But at the same time, as a teacher, as an instructor, we have our own freedom to create the kind of writing projects that we want to do in 101 and 102. I think that's pretty much it for
Okay.
101.
Also, would like to confirm because Mas Irfan said like 101 is more about experimental, more about like multimodal compared to 102. Is that also the same case with you?
I'm not sure if it's. I think the teachers are definitely given freedom in terms of genre. So the kind of genre that they want to introduce to in 101 and 102. But as far as I know, the 102 is more geared towards writing a problem analysis, a proposal, so creating like a solution for some kind of problem, writing critically about a topic. I think 101 can be a little bit more basic in terms of like genre. So I've had colleagues who did like literary analysis and just like write about their writing experience, for example. So there's not as much as critical thinking involved in 101 and 102. I mean, it depends on the instructor, but I think in 102 they're more focused on the critical thinking. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really aligning with what Mas Irfan said because in 102, he somehow can be more focusing on the academic, like expecting the students to actually produce academic writing.
Yeah.
While on
Research
the on
reports,
on the 101, he somehow like giving so much freedom, like letting students to do like vlog, podcast,
Yes,
all
yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
That it is considered writing, but not writing as we know writing. But yeah, that's why
Yeah.
he said like it's more multimodal. So I was just wondering, like, is it
Right.
also the case with you or with every other instructors as well?
I actually either if it's 101, 102, 105, I actually create the third project to be multimodal, so students can choose whether they want to write an essay, do a podcast, or create a video essay, or even an infographic. So it really depends on the instructor. You can choose your the genre that you want to focus on, as long as the purpose of the creative it's not really creative writing. The purpose of writing is based on critical thinking. I think everyone has a freedom to do that. So that's what's great about it, I guess.
Yeah, that's also like one of the things that I really like because the instructors have given, like, they got so many freedom to how they like structure their class, structure
Yes.
their lesson plan and assignment and everything. So like it's really really cool. So like
Yeah.
I think if I talk with different instructors, I will have different stories.
Different syllabus. Yeah.
Yeah, different syllabus,
syllabi.
different lesson plan,
Yeah.
different assignments. So I know that you
Absolutely.
have been teaching 5 years for 101, 102. We will also go to 105, but later.
Yeah.
I want to know how many genres have you covered for the past 5 years?
I actually I think I taught 105 more than 101 and 102. But the genres that I have are basically similar. I mean, so I focus project one, for example, in what I call the comparative evaluation. So I took some ideas from the textbook that we're using for all these classes, and there's something called writing an evaluation, where you review something and discuss the quality of that thing. But in project one, I almost always do a comparative evaluation. So students have to choose one thing and they have to evaluate it in two different settings. So, for example, comparing education system between America and Finland, for example, something like that. But it doesn't have to be that serious. It could be, there was a student who wrote about like tattooing practices in like different countries, for example, right? Or different cities, even different cultural communities, as long as the two settings are different. And project two, I almost always focused on problem analysis. So they have to think of their own community and observe a problem that they want to discuss. And then project three is always a proposal. And sometimes I encourage students to link project one, two, and three and within the same topic. And some of them link, one and two. Some of them link two and three. I think linking two and three is probably most sensical because you're analyzing a problem and then talk about the solution. Project three. So that's pretty much what I've been doing, especially because I've been teaching 105 more. In 101, I did try. I think I tried a literary analysis where I can't remember exactly, but I think they have to choose like a book or a movie or something like that, and then they just talk about the rhetorical features, which is very common, I think, to do in 101. But since I'm doing mostly 105, I wanted them to apply the critical thinking in their own community. So my personal goal is for them to look around and identify certain differences, certain issues, and then try to make a solution that can actually be feasible in their own community.
Is that for 105?
That's for 105, yeah. Because I mostly teach 105.
What's the difference between 105 and 101, 102? Because we talked the other day, and you said like the demographic of the students are different. Like they're coming from, what is it called again?
Honor students.
Honor students.
Most of them, yeah.
What makes them different with other students?
Well, as far as I understand, 105 students are those who typically have a higher SAT score, for example, or higher ACT score, or they did AP English in high school, something like that. So basically, if you can take 105, you don't have to take 101, 102. Oh. So instead of taking two courses, they just take one, and they're good for the compulsory, writing courses.
Yeah, because this is really something really new for me, because I've been like having so many conversation and discussion in my class. I mean, the class that I'm taking, not my class I'm teaching. I'm the student. I mean, like we keep talking about the FYC classes, 101, 102, but never even once that we actually like 105. Discuss about 105. So this is really new for me. That's why I'm asking.
I'm also interested because 105 doesn't seem to be as popular as it is. People tend to choose 101, 102, or 107, 108. But 105 is great. I'm not sure exactly why people are not asking for that more, because you can ask for the class that you want to teach.
I mean, like I thought like there is like a requirement that you need to be an honor student to take 105. No, so every student can take it if they want to.
I think you have to be an honor student. Not necessarily honor student, but you have to have a certain score or something like that. I don't quite understand, but you basically have to pass certain requirements. So then you don't have to do 101, 102. So they can just do one class. But from my experience, most of them are honor students, or either they have or student athletes, or most of them had like AP English or AP Literature, things like that in high school.
What is AP English?
So I think that's like a specific course that you take that's almost like it's like college level, but they did it in high school. So it's a little bit more challenging as a high school student at the time. But if they did it well, it means that they're good writers, basically.
So they started earlier than their peers, basically.
I think so. You might have to check. You might have to check, but I think so. But basically, these students have certain achievement in writing.
Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
if that's really the case, then that makes sense. That not everyone can actually take it. So it's
No.
not really common. It's not really popular. That makes sense.
I suppose, yeah, I suppose. But I think what I mean is that I don't understand why it's not popular for teachers to choose.
Oh.
Because you can choose to teach 105.
Oh, so you're talking about the teacher's
Yeah, yeah,
perspective,
yeah,
not the
yeah.
students.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because like, it sounds different. So like, are they really really different? Like the expectation and the assignments and everything is actually different.
Well, the
or?
assignments, again, it's up to the instructor how you structure it. But I do feel a difference in 105 students because they are more skilled in writing. And most of them, at least in my experience, are more confident as well. So, you know, they can generate ideas pretty quickly, and they have a very good understanding in how to find sources, how to use sources, how to cite properly, and in the way they generate the arguments and write is also a little bit more experience, I think. I guess, I mean, that makes sense because they've done it before. So it's a little bit more. In my experience, it's a little bit easier to teach because and it's a bit easier to grade because a lot of their essays are so well made, and you only need to comment on certain things to refine their understanding. Maybe there's like one or two they're still a little bit struggling, but even so, it just doesn't. It's not like major issue that they have.
Okay, since you already mentioned that, can we like a little bit touch upon the grading stuff, like how you usually do the grading? Like, what are you specifically looking at when you look at the students' assignments, student works?
Right. So I focus on different things. So, for example, on the outlines, I focus on clear argument, like the main argument, and clear structure, because I need them to visualize how the essay would look like. So I just focus on, okay, I think maybe this one should go before this one or something like that. Don't forget to add one more evidence for this one or something like that. On a rough draft, I tend to focus on the details more. So if the paragraph seems okay, then I probably don't comment, and I'll just be like, okay, this is good. And if there's like a missing comma or like the citation is incorrect, then I would definitely comment on that. Basically, I try to comment on things that I know I will take points off if it shows in the final draft. So I don't comment on everything, but if I see something and I know I will take points off that on the final draft, then I'll tell them to fix it or to revise it. But the main thing that I need to make sure is if their arguments make sense. So usually I would read it, and if I understand it, then okay, that's fine. And if it flows well, then I don't comment a lot on the content if they're okay. But so then I can focus on the details. But if the arguments are confusing or like they don't have enough evidence for this argument, then I would say like, I think you need to prove this part more. Or I would tell them like, be careful that you're saying this argument but you don't have enough evidence for it, or something like that. So it depends on the student too, I guess. But basically, I don't want to ignore something that I know I will take points off, because it wouldn't be fair for students. And on the final draft, I honestly don't comment that much because I just use the rubric, and the students know what the rubrics are. So whatever I comment on was based on the rubric anyway. So most of the time in the final draft, I don't do a lot of commenting because they all revise it on the rough draft. I'll probably see like a little bit of details here and there, like, oh, you have extra space or something like that. Very, very minor. But I try to comment whatever I can see in the final draft, and then give like an explanation why I took points off. Like, okay, I take 5 points because you did this, da 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 da. So students, know why I do that. And especially if I commented on a rough draft and they didn't revise it, then I will say, okay, this is still the same as the rough draft, so I'm taking points off. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
That's really complicated.
It can be, but if you've done it, I mean, the first year I think was a bit more difficult, but if you've done it a lot, it's definitely easier.
Yeah, because I also like asking the similar question to Mas Irfan, and how he's struggling as a double identity as a student, PhD student, as well as teaching PhD courses, and he actually ended up mentioning about grading, which is like taking a lot of time and a lot of everything going on. So okay, so now can we like move a little bit to a little bit of like comparative, because I would like to know how is like your experiences of teaching with like Indonesian students and here US students. Like, I know you teach language, not composition per se, but I know like in language you also like, as teachers we incorporate writing skills, right? Like how you teach writing in Indonesia with Indonesian students and how you teach writing in the US. Like, can you give a little bit of a glimpse of what's going on, like what you notice, something like that?
Yeah. So teaching writing as in the English language, it's so different because you're teaching them how to create a product, right? It's more of the product. You're focusing on how they can make a letter or an email or I don't know, a poem. So we focus on the product, and we give them the language that they need to produce that certain writing piece, right? And then you comment on the grammar and stuff. But for composition, you're not really teaching the language. You're not focusing on the product. You're focusing on the process of the writing. So the genre is research paper, for example. You're not focusing on, okay, let's give students this language and that language and these words and these verbs, so then they can write this research paper. But you're focusing on how they develop the arguments. So you start from the outlines, how they think about the structure, and you look at how they flesh out all those ideas into paragraphs. And you can comment, of course, you can comment on the grammar and the punctuation and everything, but that's not the main priority. The main priority is how they can progress from an outline, from rough draft, how they revise it, and then into a final draft. So everything is connected. And so the product, if they get like 95, whatever, out of 100, is an indication of how well they do the process. But I think in teaching English as a language, the product, the grade of the product doesn't necessarily relate to the process. It relates to the language that they have, the grammar that they have, the vocabulary that they have, right? It's more like the parts of the piece itself. So it's not necessarily about the process. I mean, teachers can turn it into a process writing in English teaching, of course, and I think that's a great thing to do. But for English learners, you have to be at an advanced level to do that. Because as an elementary student, if you're just learning English, you're not, it's really hard to focus on that process writing, because you're just focusing on the product. Right?
If I may ask, like, what type of students you taught in Indonesia?
You mean the levels?
Yeah.
I've taught all kinds of levels.
Including university level?
Yes.
So did you teach EAP?
EAP, English for specific purposes?
Yeah, academic purposes. Yeah.
EAP, I might have. I definitely taught ESP.
Are they? I mean, like, if we put EAP and FYC, are they the same? Are they really different?
English for academic purposes, they might be similar. They might be similar because you do have to focus on academic writing. But I don't know. I think in ESL or EFL, you don't always focus on the process. I think the teacher mostly focus on how well the product of the writing piece is, not necessarily the process. So that's a big difference, I think, with first year composition and English language writing.
Okay, so FYC courses is only here in the US, and in other countries it would be EAP. So they are
Possibly, yeah.
particularly different.
Mm-hmm.
So like, wait,
But I think what's interesting is that I don't know if every country has an FYC, because in Indonesia, do we have a compulsory course that we take in universities? I don't think we do.
That's what I was saying. Like, FYC is only in US.
Yeah.
It's not nowhere else. It's really unique to the US only. So I'm thinking like,
Probably.
can we take some values from FYC to Indonesia, like incorporate them into EAP or not?
Curriculum.
Is it possible? Is it not appropriate? Is it not the context for that? So like, it's not possible.
I think it's a great idea, because I mean, when I started university in Indonesia, there was nothing like a writing course, how to write a research paper. You just learn on your own, and I don't know. I think it's the same right now.
That's what I'm saying.
So I think that would be great. Like, if freshmen in universities in Indonesia are required to take a writing course in the first semester or the first year of their university life, I think that's a great idea.
That's what I kept thinking about. Like, what if Indonesian government actually makes something similar?
Yeah.
Like, we learn something, the good stuff from here, take from to Indonesia.
Yeah. And I'm not sure why it hasn't been done.
So when we talk about EAP, it's not the same with FYC, because it's not in the first year and it's not for freshmen.
It's still in a language course context, EAP, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about the public opinion or assumption, or maybe, I don't know, it's everyone also, or maybe it's me, but I think most of Indonesian students, they perceive writing as not their favorite kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think is the problem here?
For Indonesian students, well, it can be related to the culture, because I don't think our culture is a writing culture. We just don't write a lot in our daily life even. I think that's probably one of the factors. I guess another one would be the not infrastructure, but kind of like that, the system itself. Like, we just discussed that we don't even have a compulsory writing course in university. Mm-hmm. In fact, we don't even have writing courses before university. Like, it was there was like Indonesian course, language, English course, or whatever language course, but there's no like specifically how to write course. In any education level, I don't think, right? Elementary school, junior high school. Maybe there's like a poetry writing, something like that. But it's always under Indonesian language course, right? If there's a class on Indonesian language, then maybe we have like a little writing activity. Yeah. But there's no like specifically composition courses. I don't think we have that. So I guess it's sort of like almost a vicious cycle, because we don't have the culture, but we also don't have the system to support it. So yeah, nobody's starting it. Nobody's thinking about it, which is interesting. Yeah,
which is interesting and concerning.
At the same time,
we have the problems, a lot of problems, and we don't actually create the solution for that.
And it's actually interesting how did people learn how to write? Because everyone did everyone did a thesis in their bachelor. Everyone had to do a thesis for their masters.
This is what I'm saying. Like university students are expected to create such writings.
But how did we learn how to do it?
But
Yeah.
but the teacher, the instructor, they don't even teach them how to write them. They just expect you need to finish an undergraduate thesis by the end of your undergrad.
Yeah. I think all of us probably just wrote something by example. Like somebody started, right? Like we just took somebody's thesis and like, oh, that's how you structure it, so I'll structure it like that.
This is exactly what I did in my undergrad. Like I look up to one of my senior that I can say, that's a really good senior, and I look up his undergraduate thesis in the library, and then this is how I will model my thesis.
Right. But still, we can copy the structure, but I don't even understand how did we come up with how to argue something. What were our argument strategies? And that's what I learned a lot from teaching 101, 102, and 105, because I actually learned, this is how you form an argument. We've never been taught that. I mean, obviously this is probably not the only way that you form an argument, but yeah, it makes me wonder, like, how did I form my argument in my undergrad thesis? Because you can't really copy that, can you? Or maybe you can, I don't know. But yeah. that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, like when the first time I came here and I get to know there is something called 101, 102, and I was like, wow, I was shocked. Like, wow, they got something like that, this really cool stuff that we don't have in Indonesia. And I ended up like ask some of my friends on Instagram, like a polling, do you have writing courses back in undergrad, like in your first year? Some say yes, some say no, but for me it's because I'm coming from English literature, so I have English department privilege. We have writing 1 or writing 2, but it's not the same with other non-English majors. So most of them, they don't, right?
Yes,
or they mention like they have Indonesian course, Indonesian language course or something like that. But it's
not different. Yeah, it's different.
It's just different. Like, why we keep having this problem, but not thinking of looking for something to do better.
Yeah. Although for domestic students here, it's a chore because they've learned how to write and things like that in high school. So if they have to do it again in college, for them it's kind of like, I have to do this course. so it's a different mentality.
So the domestic students here, they actually have composition class in high school before they enter.
I believe so. Yeah,
university.
They have a writing course in high school. Yeah, because a lot of them have experience in writing. I mean, even though most of them, at least from my experience, students told me that a lot of the writing was like like a literary analysis. So here's a book, you analyze the book, or you analyze the, whatever novel or something like that. But it's still composition. They have some composition experience in high school.
So it's sort of like repetitive. They do it again.
It can be a little repetitive for them, and that's why some students are motivated, some students are not motivated. So it depends, and I think that's what the instructors need to do. We need to package it in a way that is interesting for the students. And at least from the feedback I got from my students is that they really like the fact that they have a lot of freedom in choosing the topic, because in high school most of the time they couldn't choose a topic. But here it's a little bit more free, and they can write about things that they're passionate about. So yeah.
Also, there is also another one thing that I noticed we don't have in Indonesia, or we don't talk a lot about that. Rhetorical. Can you say a bit about that, like what is rhetorical and why it's important for writing, why we don't have that in Indonesia? What's going on with rhetorical?
I have no idea why we don't have these ideas in Indonesia. Well, I think it's a Greek. It's definitely sort of an ancient
ethos, pathos, logos kind of stuff.
Ideas which come from maybe a Greek ideology or something. Yeah. So do you want me to talk about?
Rhetorical in a nutshell.
So I think in general the idea is that when you make an argument, you use different appeals, and there are four appeals, and you can use a emotional appeal, which is pathos, and you can use a logical appeal, which is logos. You can use an ethical appeal, which is ethos, and you can also use a timeliness appeal, which what we call kairos. And a lot of students have heard or have used the first three in high school, but here we also introduce kairos, so that would be a little new for them. And you can use a combination of these appeals in your argument, and you have to use it well, and the evidence has to align with the type of appeals and things like that. So that's a nutshell. Making an argument with certain types of appeals, a combination of appeals.
Or the way I don't know if it's true or not, you may comment, but what I see, what's missing from Indonesian students writing is they don't have the knowledge about the rhetorical. That's why they have like a body without a soul.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Maybe. I don't know if I can comment a lot on Indonesians in their compositions. I've never taught composition in Indonesia.
Because there's not even a course in Indonesia about question.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't know how to, because even for me, as I said, I learned these things when I started teaching here. And I was like, oh, there's such thing as pathos, and then it made me realize when I see an ad or when I read something, it made me realize, oh right, yeah, they're using
it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they're using emotional appeal, or they're using an ethical appeal. Oh, why not? I mean, I didn't really know about that. So I'm not surprised if Indonesian students don't know back home. Which I think it can be a very interesting concept to introduce in Indonesia, for sure. I just don't know why nobody's done that before. I really don't. It's 2023. Nobody's done that before. I have no idea why.
Yeah, I don't know. We keep having these problems and just repeatedly say we have problems, but then we don't do nothing about that. So.
Yeah. Oh no.
So yeah. Also another information. In order to teach FYC, you need to be a PhD student. You need to be in a TAC, and you need to also have a course, right? You have like 2 semesters course on how to teach FYC.
Yes.
At the same time while you're teaching FYC for the first years, right?
The first year, yes, you have to take one teaching writing course in the first semester, and then another one in the second semester. But if you want to teach 107 or 108, you have to take another course, a separate course, but that's optional. Only if you want to teach 107, 108.
Do you have friends who have experience taught English 107, 108, or currently teaching 107, 108?
At the moment, I mean, a few of my friends did 107, 108 when we were still PhD students, but we all graduated. So at the moment, I don't know, but there must be someone who's teaching 107, 108.
Did you like, do you mean Katie?
Katie did 107, 108, I
Okay.
think. I know that a few of them, I think Suyun did 107 or 108. Hey
Oh, hey.
Hey did 107, 108. I remember her telling me about that.
Maybe
So-
he can be my next guest speaker for
Maybe,
another
yeah.
episode.
For the 107, 108, yeah, possibly, yeah.
Okay. So, I also wonder why you don't actually consider to teach 107, 108.
Oh yeah, it's because I think it might be a similar experience. I mean, it can be different, but I think it might be a similar experience with teaching English to international students, which I have experience in, because I didn't only teach in Indonesia. I also taught in Ukraine. I taught in Ohio, and when I was in Ohio, I had so many students from so many different countries, and at some point, I taught writing as well. And I know it's a little bit different, but I just didn't. I wanted to have experience with domestic students because I had, more than 10 years experience of teaching international students. So while I'm here, I want to have experience with domestic students.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So I want to maximize that chance to get that 5 years experience of teaching American students, because I think it has its own challenges. Yeah, I want to just kind of balance my experience. That's why I didn't go for 107, 108.
Okay, another thing I would like to mention, because I'm coming from a English teacher's background,
Yeah.
it's like throughout my teaching experiences, I know as teachers we should focus on 4 skills,
Right.
but we ended up giving more attention to speaking most of the times. I don't know if it's also with other teachers, but
Yeah.
it's the case for me. I'm trying so hard to also incorporate writing skills,
Right.
but ended up not really maximizing it, like not really give the proper portion for writing.
Okay.
So do you agree that we need another course for writing?
Specifically
For writing, for Indonesian context.
You mean if you teach English in Indonesia?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, if you create a syllabus that has a good balance, then that's fine. But if you want to have a separate course just for writing, I think that would be really good. Yeah, I think that would be very interesting. Probably for students who are intermediate or above, but I think that would be interesting. So you can focus on different genres. You can focus on the process. You can focus on rhetorical features. I think that would be very interesting. I mean, you can still include a little bit of writing in the regular course, but yeah, I think that would be a great idea if you have just writing course.
Yeah. I mean, like, we just like take something good from here, which is they already introduced writing courses, writing classes in high school, and then doing it again in university level. So why don't we do the same thing in Indonesia? Like, it's never been done before, but
Yes.
it sure is something essential to be created.
I'm just reminded of there is a similarity for like academic writing in IELTS courses.
Oh yeah.
So if you take IELTS courses, I don't know if TOEFL courses, they do have a writing section.
But this for IBT, but not for ITP, right?
Yes, for the IBT one. But the IELTS writing tasks are actually not super similar, but almost kind of prepares you for the kind of writing that you will do in university if you have to do it in English.
But the problem is when
that's
the problem is when you do like IELTS courses, that's like you want to apply for study abroad, which is not accessible for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Also, like, I already asked some of my friends, like, where or when did you learn writing, or what is the courses that you take, and most of them mention when I learned IELTS.
Yes.
That's really concerning. Like, okay.
Yeah. Because there's not a lot of places to do writing exercises, so I guess the IELTS does help in a way.
But also at the same time, IELTS is not for everyone.
Eh?
IELTS is not for everyone.
Not for
at least,
everyone.
like, not for those who not want to go abroad.
Yeah, only for people who want to go abroad. Yeah. So it would be. I think it would be very good to create that kind of course
So
in Indonesian context. Yeah.
So what do you think about giving some suggestions or like your lesson learned that you can share with either teachers of writers, teachers of writing, or students of writing, like students who want to learn to do better on their writing, or teachers who like they're teaching English language but they also like have some difficulties on like incorporating the writing parts.
Yeah.
Do you have something to say about that?
So for
Tips and trick.
For students, in what context? In Indonesian context?
Yeah, I always talk about this context.
Okay. So Indonesian context and specifically in English language, right? For students who want to develop their writing skills, I think it would be a good idea to expose yourself to different genres. I mean, at the end of the day, you probably want to focus on the type of writing you will need, because if you're writing it in English, um, you probably won't, if you live in Indonesia and you want to write in English, you probably have a limited purpose, right? Like, why would you write in English if you're living in Indonesia? So you probably have to find like a specific purpose that you have to write in English, like maybe emails, or maybe just focus on practicing that. Or I mean, I don't know. In the past, I used to write poems to practice my English, even though it's it's not for public, but it's just it's just having that physical activity of actually thinking about the words and like, oh, what rhymes and how about the structure, so it helps. But I'd say, I'd say you have to find a genre that you either like, or a genre that you will probably need. Because if you don't like, let's say, if you don't like poetry and you force yourself to write poetry, I don't know if that's beneficial. So yeah, either something you need or something you like. And for teachers, I think, are you talking about the challenge of incorporating the writing parts, or just in general teaching writing?
Can be both. Like sometimes teachers also trying to like address writing, but also not have the time for that. All the time
Okay.
consumed by talking about the grammar stuff
Yeah.
and how to speak, and then like when the students actually can speak, the teachers would like, oh, okay, I'm a successful teacher already because they know
Right.
how to speak.
Oh, I see. I see. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Um. Well, I think again it depends on the purpose of the writing. Right. Like, what kind of genres do you want students to be able to do at the end of the level?
Okay, let's say we're focusing on academia, so academic, right? So like that's a kind of genre that all the students will need
Okay.
to do at the end of the day, right?
So yeah, if I think at the start of the level, it has to be clear like what kind of genres they have to be successful in, and carve time for it. I'd say if you, like, I don't know, if you teach like every day, like one class per day, so 5 classes per week, then I'd say you need at least one class focus on writing, right? So I think it comes down to the planning before the class even starts. So you need to have like a clear idea of how many classes you will teach, and how many classes you will allocate for speaking, for listening, for reading, for writing, and you make sure that you have enough classes to cover these genres for writing. So I think that it comes down to planning. I think so. Not so. I think my method is always plan ahead. So going into a course, you already have a complete calendar of what you're going to do in every class, because that is the work that you have to do before, to make sure that you have time for everything. If you go into a course and you do it on a daily basis, like, okay, today I'm going to teach this, tomorrow I don't know, maybe tomorrow I'll teach this. If you go on a daily basis like that, that's hard. It's going to be really hard. It has to be way before the
Well
course
planned.
starts. It has to be well planned, because that's the time when you consider how what the portion of the course that you want to focus on, and then you have to stick to that. Yeah.
Because I see like how many humans of Indonesia, we're talking about how many 200 million, more than 200 million,
200
and
million.
most of them are like in their like youth, and like we have so many
Less than
students.
30, yeah.
Yeah, and then like we have so many students, we have so many universities.
Yeah.
We expect a lot coming from the students, but the instructors do not really give composition courses.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, it's giving me headache. Like, are you also thinking the same? Like, we need to actually take this seriously.
Mm-hmm. Um, I mean, I definitely think that there should be some kind of change. I don't know how
We don't
can
have the
change
power.
it. I don't think, yeah. Yeah, we can change our environment, at least our surroundings. Like if you go back to Indonesia and you teach in a school, for example, then you can propose like, why don't we have a writing course, right? So you at least have a solution for that particular community. But if you're talking about like a federal, regulation or education change, that's like, yeah, I don't know how we can reach that level. I think it has to be people from that level that comes up with this idea. Or who knows, maybe if you can make something popular and share it with other communities, share it with other schools, and maybe, but so from the ground up.
Oh.
Maybe it sounds very difficult, but but who knows? Who knows?
I mean, it's like do something big, like change the world. Like no, but
Yeah. I mean, like,
at least like we have like
make a small change in your own community. Yeah.
small changes, and we have the same thing in common, something like
Yeah.
we're on the same boat. Like we
Yes,
realize
yes.
this problem, we acknowledge this problem, and then we
Yes,
do
yes, yes.
something about this. I want people
Right.
to actually
Yeah, yeah.
that.
Because I don't know if you work in a school and then,
No.
well, later, if when you come back, if you work in a school and you successfully have run a writing course, for example. I mean, you could think about, okay, let's train teachers to do this well, like how to actually teach writing, because I think the teaching skills are also not as developed probably. So maybe if you have a writing course for teachers, maybe they can go into their communities and develop their own like writing courses, right? So it can sort of be like a,
Ooh.
like a, what do you call that? Like a MLM idea, right? Like how you spread the idea is like a multi-level marketing thing, right? So you can do one and then you can tell others to do the same, tell others to do the same.
MLM is really Indonesian context, right? Maybe if the viewers of this podcast
Yeah.
in Indonesian, they will not. What is MLM?
Um,
Basically, like something
multi-level marketing.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. That's really really.
I mean,
Funny.
that's the idea. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you can spread the idea like that, perhaps.
You're saying like we're I don't know. We build a community, teachers community, and then share.
Yeah, and
the
then
knowledge.
so the teachers can go to their communities and teach it, and then maybe they can teach other teachers, and teachers can go to other communities. Perhaps, yeah, you could start. Yeah, you could start with a small change in your own environment in your community.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah,
That's a good idea actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, we cover bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That specifically talking about the writing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we have like for the rest of the time, I wanna know a little bit more about you going back, because we talk about your PhD life at the beginning, and then let's talk a little bit more about that at the end.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. Sure.
what is the struggle, the whatever,
As a PhD student.
as a PhD student.
I think, I think the biggest struggle is carrying a goal for 5 years, because the goal is to create a dissertation, of course, but then there's all these steps to create to successfully create a dissertation. Is you can't just like, okay, write a dissertation, because you have to do 2 portfolio papers, and you have to do a prospectus exam, and you have to collect the data, and you have to analyze. Like, there's just so many steps to complete it. And I think the challenge is to maintain a sense of resilience every year, because it gets tiring you get more and more tired every year you're in a PhD program. I had so much vitality in the first year and so much excitement, but it's just what it is. You have more things to do. The burden feels heavier every year, and so you just need to like be resilient and like do something every day, and just keep going. So that's probably the biggest struggle. I think for me, in personally, it is difficult to be a PhD student and a TA at the same time, because the teaching does take some time, especially if you're teaching in person. Sometimes you have to teach 3 times a week, for example. So the teaching takes time, and grading takes a lot more time. So you really have to be efficient in certain things, and try to prioritize like which tasks do I need to finish, or which tasks that are most important for me to do this week. So focus on that, and the other things can you can decide. But do you know that that method, that metaphor with the rocks and feel it when you feel in
The water.
the
Yeah.
not the
Like,
not the water.
The water touch upon the rock. How hard the rock is, it will be like melted a little bit. It will be like making a hole.
No,
Because the water keeps
no.
coming. Oh, no.
It's like this empty jar. If you have an empty jar and you have so many rocks
Oh,
to
okay.
put in, it's a metaphor of time, basically. So you want to put the big rocks first,
Oh.
and then you put the smaller rocks, and then you put the sand, so you can fill everything.
Oh.
But if you fill the jar with the sand first, the little things first, you don't have time for the big rocks. You don't have space for the big rocks. So it's a metaphor of time. Basically, if the jar is your time, you want to choose the big rocks, which are the most important tasks to finish first. Focus on that first, and then you find other space to do the smaller tasks. So that's how you want to manage your time, because I think, at least for me, I've experienced seeing some of my colleagues focus on little things first, but then they spend so much time on that. And I think grading, in a way, is not a super, I mean, it's important, but it's not your biggest rocks. I think it's probably your medium rocks. So you want to finish the grading, if you can, within 2 days. Just 1 day, 2 days, done, and then you can move on to other things. Because I've seen friends or colleagues who spent like weeks, just grading. And I think that that may be not wasting, but like you're not using your time efficiently, or as efficiently as you can. So yeah, I think it's hard when you have to juggle 2 things, but at the end of the day, you can do it. I think everyone can do it. You just have to manage your time well, and really, I mean, it's all about planning. I really love planning, so I think that's one of the reasons in general, I can go through the semesters successfully to some extent, but in generally, successful, because I plan ahead. Before the semester starts. I always plan ahead. Before the week starts, I know what I have to do in that week. So it's like planning for the course. Like, you see 5 days, and you have
Lesson
to think
planning.
about, you see 5 days, and you have to think about, okay, how many tasks do I have to finish in this week? Okay, which one should I do first? Which one can I do next? Okay, can I do it in this day or that day? According to whatever your schedules are. And I usually put a little bit of time not to do nothing. So there would be either 1 day or 1 afternoon or 1 morning, whatever day, I do completely nothing.
Ooh.
Because you have to plan that as well. Otherwise, you work all the time. So that's also not good.
Yeah.
So
You need rest.
you need rest too.
Some day off, because this is interesting, because a lot of my Indonesian friends, they are either coming from the funding from Indonesian government like LPDP, or American government funding like Fulbright. So like talking with you, coming from scholarship from ASU from campus
For TA, yeah.
for TA is really interesting and insightful.
Yes.
That's why
Yes,
really different.
It's different. It's you have more work, but you also have, I guess, a little bit more freedom in a way. But yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons, but I think at the end of the day, if you do a TA shape, you will have a lot of experience in teaching, which something you can't really buy. So that's that's pretty. I think it's quite precious for me. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do some review from 1 to
Right.
5. How do you rate PhD life?
Oh, PhD life at ASU specifically, 1 to 5. I'd say it was a 4. I think it was a 4. There's a few things that can be made better. I think not by me, but like by the environment. But I think it's a 4. Yeah,
It's a 4, guys.
it's a 4.
Okay, thank you so much for the
Alright.
time.
Of course.
I really appreciate this, and hopefully this podcast, this video can be, I don't know, something beneficial for those who watch, for those who listen. Thank you. And I will see you guys in the next episode if I have any other episode.
Yay!